Blessed love and peace. Yeah, we got another joint. Ain't too many further these, to be honest, God willing, because we are stopping. We putting a pause on our education to part-time students. To be honest, no hate, but this is it. A pause on our services to part-time students. We continue to provide educational service to our full-time students, but not to the part-time students. Why? Don't matter, actually. We can tell you what the criteria is, what the prerequisites are, what the intuition is, what the admissions requirements are for full-time students. Very simple. Same thing for being part of the community, which we're also adjusting in terms of our relations with kinfolk. Concerning our community, we are concentrating our interaction within our community exclusively and generally limiting interaction outside of our community on transactional bases, meaning for the purpose of transactional relations outside of the community, otherwise concentrating within the community. The basic rationale, the reason explaining, not that there's a necessity of sharing such, but for public service information, because we live a discipline, we live ethics, strong, not perfect, not better than, and that makes us vulnerable. Human beings are predatory. Human beings in civilization are continually running game, one way or the other. And when living by ethics that include being honest, being fair and modest, and also being altruistic, being giving, that leaves, whenever we gain trust and we gain provisions through that trust for our own sustenance, for the sustenance of others and otherwise, that becomes coveted and target for gain. Those entrustments can be material, those entrustments can be abstract, and further, there are all different types of capital in this life, in civilization, and they're all different kinfolks who are geniuses on running game, from the streets to the ivy towers and all the places in between. So we have to be further mindful of our interaction with kinfolk accordingly, particularly in the process of establishing physical space to live and be ourselves. So, particularly on this continent, amidst the political climate approaching and continually, and the continual erosion of society itself, it's a matter of withdrawing further from regular interaction and limiting our interaction to transactional purposes primarily. Now, to be in the community, our community, proper, 3 things. Numero uno, no citizenships of any nation of the member nations of the United Nations. No ownership of bank accounts, stocks, bonds, land titles, shares, all those abstractions of property. None of that. Third one is Panchasilas, peace, sharing, chastity, honesty, and sobriety. It's a wealth ethos, a global ethic. It's prescribed by the Buddha thousands of years ago. Plain and simple, on our honor system. We don't have to get all codified about details and what if this, what if that. When you live it, when we live it, it speaks for itself and has its own credibility, it has its own authority, and it has its own detections and otherwise. But it also has own vulnerabilities amidst the strategies here. So as we continue to cultivate actual physical community within this discipline, in continuing relationship and cooperation with other entities, governments, religions, gangsters, and otherwise, we need a proper distance and protocols of interaction. particularly amidst all the gaslighting of, again, game running. People, even who have genuine intentions, but at the same time have priorities within the practices that are increasingly predatory and the eventual susceptibilities accordingly. Blessings already recited. So that's the protocols for community. Those are the same prerequisites for full-time students. Same exact thing. No citizenship, no ownership, Panchasilas. During the time frame of being a student. Giving it up before enrolling as a full-time student. We provide what we can accordingly, make arrangements for kinfolk accordingly along those lines. Kinfolk want to stop and go on their own thing, they can go back to whatever. But during the time of being a full-time student with us and sharing what we got, proper, thorough, that's what the requirement is. Because otherwise, kinfolk ain't receiving it properly. Kinfolk are utilizing it for running further game and getting advantageous positioning with others. So, and I mean, it's, hate about that or whatever. I mean, that's how life is. That's how people do things. But we're less available to offer our knowledge in that respect. We have further accountability. So, anyways, that's it. What it is. That being said, we are progressing further into the actuality. Myself personally, as well as kinfolk around myself. So, and myself around kinfolk. Blah da. That's a holler from the RTA. Gotta catch that read up. Big up bone. Alright. Interesting. I was watching I'll do some shout outs here, I guess. I don't know if this is shout outs, I don't know if this is name dropping. Blunk. That's a have plenty reference. What up? Blunk. Anyway. Yo, that's not even a plunk. That's a shout out, a fish out. And I guess before we get into the nasty stuff, because that's what this is actually, that's what precipitates this. That's what moved me to be here at this moment, doing this at 42 minutes before midnight. Oh, it's still early. I'm talking at the window. I consider how vocal the voice is to provoke the kinfolk in the near vicinity towards doing similar. Oh, we got activity. So, all right, it's already, the energy is moving. So, all right. Anything other notes? Like I said, I might do some shots. Here we go. I was watching Brother Daniel Dumbril in China. What was I talking about just a second ago? To provoke. Ida, I'm getting on this now. Okay. He was doing a conversation with one of his friends, one of the brethren in China. Both are coming from Canada, Turtle Island, but are now living in China. Talking about life in China. Basically a recruitment, actually, to be honest, of life in China. Ain't hating on that either. That's a very legitimate prospect. Sharing what the concerns are within Western civilization. Appreciation for that. Interesting. It's interesting. Still have you to discern whether brethren are CIA or something else, or actually authentic or otherwise. That's life. Yo, a story for today. But what was I saying beforehand? How about that? I was talking about something. Oh, right. So the brethren was talking about like the difference between like feeling safe in China, not worrying about being killed, not worrying about like being robbed, and things like that. And like having to tell people in China who are like their children going to be a student or whatever. One was talking about going to LA. Their friend was taking their daughter to be a student in LA, and having to like let them know, like, like it's not like it is here in China. Like in LA, you have to have like, just describing how children don't have like street smarts. And it's not a matter of being ignorant or stupid, just not accustomed to having to worry, look over one's back, or just live in a way of recognizing like they're hyenas and sharks. that abound. And so when they mentioned like, one of the friends says, yeah, we heard gunshots the other day. And so like, I remember just like a few days ago, me sitting in this very seat, looking out this very window and saying, oh yeah, those gunshots. And that's a regular, not trying that's no, like, that's no cap. That's no brag. That's facts. Now there are certain occasions, like, to let you know, like just like a year ago, I heard it. I could clearly hear a woman yelling, "Help! Help! Help me! Help me! Help me!" And that's happened a number of times. And I've gone out and I've tried to find where it's going on, and it's in the near distance. You can hear the voice, woman crying out, yelling out, "Help me!" Screaming, "Help me!" In Torah, we are taught, when you hear that, you have to respond. Now that's when people are living in a certain way, because if a woman doesn't yell out and she's being accosted, then afterwards she's actually blamed because she should have yelled out. So when a man hears that, presuming everybody else is living by that same standard, which is not the case here, so we don't have the same obligation because cats are getting caught up in stuff. But at that moment, when I heard it, I got out there, and everything is like 2 a.m. Everything's closed. The corner store is closed. So that tells you right there, liquor done stop. So that's how late it is. But at the same time, the gas station across the street is still open on the locked doors kind of situation. So I go there and knock on. I'm like, you hear a woman screaming? He's like, all the time. Because like I said, right there, it's hectic. It's hectic. And I'm like, you have an idea like what the scenario is? Yeah, women getting beat by their boyfriends or whatever else. And he would like nonchalant. He was like looking at me like respect that I'm going, but like it's an everyday thing. How about that? It's an everyday thing. So, East 99. So ain't East 99. It's Mayfield and Coventry. Oh, it's the Heights. Yeah, don't get it twisted. Still. Anyways, gunshots, regular basis. It's a matter of like it becomes like it's almost like the drum. It's like the drum beat. You hear the gunshots. Now, if you know the streets, you know who's doing it. You can tell by the gun, by the caliber, and additionally, who is it shooting at that moment. Yes, facts. Not only that, you hear like who's making a statement by the caliber they're shooting. I remember one time, even on New Year's Day, obviously New Year's Eve or whatever, that's the big time, July 4th. Gangsters popping off on July 4th. That's slavery. But anyways, shooting a gun is slavery because you have to. Like, I've already explained like relying upon ammo and everything else from the people that kinfolk don't like. But anyways, I remember one time, like maybe a couple years ago, I heard a heavy caliber. Now we know there's 50s and otherwise in the vicinity, particularly in Little Italy and otherwise, that are like low key, low kept. It's not Texas where kinfolk drive on their pickup truck. That's not how it is here, at least in this vicinity. Outside of the Cuyahoga, in the country, don't get it twisted. It's malicious. It's the militia, like it is in Texas. But here in the city-fied area, it's still on the low. But it's here, and I remember one New Year's Eve, and this is a long side into a side note. Anyways, I can hear it. I'm very confident. I know the location where it's going because you know the spots where the spots are. But it was New Year's Eve where that's like the public sanctioned place of licking shots. What's it? Letting two in the air. One is in the air and one is in the chamber. You ask me what the fuck I'm doing? I'm releasing anger, quick to dodge danger. I have it one way. Ain't no thing but a chicka wang. Anyways, shout out to those who are outcasts. I know I was. Anyways, on that particular occasion, it was a caliber I had not heard before. Automatic, like a new big gun in town type of situation. That was only one time, but anyways, I remember just a few weeks ago hearing some shots as I'm doing one of these joints and saying, oh yeah, that's gunshots. So when I heard the brethren say, yeah, you gotta get used to that, I'm like, haha, that's a thing. Anyways, interesting conversation. Shares valuable perspective about life. Further honest joints about where civilization is, what civilization does, particularly West, particularly amidst all the propaganda, particularly amidst all the lies. And additionally, I get clapback. We get clapback for calling LGBTQ flags rainbow swastikas. Um, that's facts. It's a rainbow swastika. Um, we didn't say nothing about Nazis. Do your history search. If you want your lessons, you can come. It's full-time basis on our side. Otherwise, look it up yourself. I don't like that when young people say that because that's shirking the responsibility of teaching. But we've already shared for free. So it's facts. But when we get clapback and warnings because of what we share, it's like, well, does not that prove the point right there? What we're saying, we didn't even say Nazis. You're the one saying Nazis, and even then, threatening us in the same breath. Is that not what we're talking about? Back on topic. There was something I was getting for on that one. However, that might have to be, when we get into the realm of that, the concentration gets further tenuous. Oh, right. So, talking about that here, if it makes it feel, how that song go? Did it make you feel any better? Whatever. How about this? All Americans are Nazis. Facts. If you're looking for a genocide, 99% of the people who live on this continent are from someplace else. Genocide. That's what that is. Brethren Daniel Dumbrill and his friend, the other brethren from Canada, via Bangkok they were doing a tour through one of the cities in China. We're talking about the mass graves of children at a Canadian schoolhouse, Native children. Mass graves of Native children within recent years found, and trying to spin it, trying to avoid it. The epidemic of Native women being killed and abducted. These days, look at Lumi Nation and the song for Native Sistren. These days, when we talk about the rainbow swastika, and people want to say, are you actually comparing us to Nazi Germany and the Nazis' extermination of 6 million Jews and additionally Holocaust? And it becomes this, first of all, not addressing what we're actually saying, but a diversive tactic with the huge, grave cliches, to be honest, cliches. It's nasty to say that, but that's how it's utilized, to distract away from what's actually going on. But if that need be, yes, check the graves. You want to flash the Holocaust, and that's nasty business that's done. Terrible atrocities to millions of Jewish kinfolk, holy kinfolk, children of God, killed. Atrocities. Look at what America is doing. What is America's body count since that time? Can't even count it. Can't even count it. Has anybody, any other entity on earth killed further people? Murdered further people? Tortured further people? Raped further people? Pillaged further people than the United States? That's not even hyperbole. That's not hype, whatever else. Anyways, it's anybody who wants to argue otherwise, shut the fuck up on some bullshit. They're drunk, and that's not even worth arguing. And if you need the bodies, check the mass graves of the children at the schoolhouse. That's just one example that's revealed and becomes privy to public information. And not only that, think about that. Imagine the scene when every one of those children are killed. Children killed. Taken away from families, taken to some nondescript location to be reprogrammed to hate self-hatred and let go of their culture, their language, their ancestors, and additionally, and play the game and pretend and just accept being a slave. And if they act up, killed. The United States, that's not even the United States, that's Canada. Killed. And we can very much recognize it's not just kill, it's torture. And it's shock and awe in front of other children, quietly or abruptly. Think about the scene where each child is killed. Think about the adult and adults that are doing that, the moment, what leads up to it, the thoughts that lead up to it, the conversations that the adults have, and talking about killing children at a schoolhouse, native children who refuse to be slaves. This generation. Pop, clap, what's happening? That wasn't a gunshot, but that's an imitation. Refuse to be slaves and are killed, tortured, killed. Within our recent generation. You want evidence of Nazism in the United States, in the Western Hemisphere, in Western civilization. You don't have to search. You just have to awake. Do I lie? So, when LGBTQ rises through the ranks and flies its flags in city halls and draws its insignias on crosswalks that go to high schools where 13 and 14-year-old children go to school on a daily basis and have no choice what else to walk, because it's the law. You got to walk in the crosswalk, and it just happens, oh, it's the yellow brick road. It's very much Nazism. We didn't say that. You said that. We said it's rainbow swastika. But we don't not say it's Nazism either, because all of America is Nazism. There's just sexually deviant Nazism, and then there's just blatant tribal, violent Nazism. The Democratic cult or the Republican cult. And as we say to the kinfolk who articulate those threats as allies, LGBTQ don't want these problems. That's facts. No cap. LGBTQ got a lot to lose. Anyways, so that's some of the side note. So that's some of the shout outs. Watched some of the I think it was a couple years ago, the sharings from Singapore. We also view a number of joints. The Gooby and Doobie. I'll get it. I'm not no disrespect. It's not that difficult. And also, we gotta respect the spirit of the sharing. So in that spirit of sharing, it's a Korean brethren who lives in the Pacific Northwest, formerly educated in being a doctor, but quits his job as a neurosurgeon, primarily performing on back surgeries, because he recognizes that ain't doing it, and that healing is actually something different. So he starts going into the woods, doing walks and just being healthy, and then starts to record that to share it with people, and now people are responding. Gooby and Doobie. So anyways, he shares some helpful. He's a doctor, educated, formerly And he and his wife live in, like I said, the Pacific Northwest. He goes to the mountains hiking and stuff like that. But he does recordings from nature, but also talking about healthy living. He's not a vegan, but he talks about like how healthy vegan lifestyle is. And not just any vegan lifestyle, but no processed food, vegan imitations, high salt type stuff, not that stuff. The genuine stuff that's healthy. This is still all not the primary topic. What draw me here to do this joint. This is some of the stuff I don't say in previous joints to get here. So point for bringing him up is interesting insight, interesting perspective. And I'll share some thoughts about ideas for his thing. I looked for an email, didn't see an email for him readily available. Don't know how accessible it is with the comments, and like at this point, like I said, our reach out mode is very lower at this point. So what I'll do is share it here. If it gets to him, it gets to him. If otherwise. However, this is it. This is a few things. One, it would be actually very interesting to hear him talk with some Rastafari brethren about ITAL and match his conventional background, his cultural heritage background and intuition and proclivities, his affinity for nature, his knowledge about health, physiology, nutrition, as a doctor in the science of that, to talk with someone who is Rastafari, Afrocentric but spiritual, congenial, has knowledge also about nutrition, ITAL, relationship with nature, respect with all life, coming from a spiritual mystic experience, non-judgmental, non-converting, increasingly compatible in cross-cultural reasoning. That kind of conversation I think would be very beneficial. A lot of topics to talk about in that respect, about fruits, vegetables specifically, and experience of health and well-being. What was that? I don't know if anybody's ever seen shadow walkers before. It's an interesting thing. And there's a number of different types of shadow walkers too. No cap. I don't think it's difficult to describe what that was, actually, to be honest. It could have been somebody on a bicycle, but didn't see the person like leading up to that point. It was only right at the end, and it was at a different angle. So it was interesting. It was like somebody running across the street for little reason, and like curving at the end too. Anyways, one example of shadow walking is I go on to a side note of a side note of a side note. Is like somebody walking a dog and like wearing dark clothing. Like it's like intentional. Like it's intended to be invisible in the night, but in plain sight, but invisible. So somebody walking a dog, but they're wearing black, and they know where they become invisible and where they don't become invisible, where they become visible, and like are scoping people in the meanwhile, not necessarily for predatory purposes, not for that either, but just like seeing like, yo, who's out here? And I remember one time I was standing outside by a tree, not moving, and that's when I saw somebody walking their dog, and it looked like the dog was just walking by themselves. And there are deer that run by here, sometimes coyotes and otherwise. Coyotes in the hood, sitting with the boys. Anyways, but on that particular, it was a dog, and it looked like the dog was just walking by itself. Because behind is bushes that look black with the silhouettes of the night and everything, and the person was just wearing all black. And at first, like the person was just standing still, the dog was there or whatever. And I mean, obviously, if somebody's walking a dog, they're not trying to be too invisible. But there's other similar situations like that as well, where it's just like people by their happenstance. They're not like ninjas trying to like sneak around or whatever in stealth for on a mission or whatever, but just like casual, practicing being invisible in plain sight. It's trippy. Now that's that. Now we can talk about like shadows when there's nobody there. Holy, that's another thing. Ask the crows. Ooh, that's another topic. We ain't going there right now. Take a sip. What you got in this water? joy and health. Big up, peace and blessings. So, and all thanks and praise to the Most High. All right, can we go back to the side note? All right, Gooby and Doobie, conversation about that. But even further specifically, here's the kicker with this one. That kind of conversation. Even him just answering this question himself, knowing what he knows about health, nutrition, natural, the emphasis of nature, whole foods, eating berries, tubers, vegetables, fruits, and additionally low salt, and additionally, and given his socioeconomic experience and lifestyles and proclivities and biases and otherwise, to imagine an ideal living environment given the conditions of today, the postmodern, post-cosmopolitan conditions of today. Ooh, that was a little bit snarky. Let's roll. Post-cosmopolitan conditions of today, era of today, the third epoch of civilization, the epoch of beige, the first generation of the Black Buddha. In this era, given what people's expectations are, acclamations are, occupations and vocations in life are, but at the same time, what actual health is, relationship with nature, what does an ideal village look like? Where people are doing whatever it is on these devices or whatever else, but at the same time, have some type of direct relationship and interaction with agriculture, organic agriculture, the things that we know are the most healthy. What is the primary mode of transportation? We know it would be pedestrian, walking, bicycling, and otherwise. But then how does that practically manifest in a way that doesn't look commune or otherwise like that? But like, how can a suburb or some suburbanites manifest that where people are at this moment, either through moving to specific locations, developments in rural areas, renovating suburban areas, whether it's quote unquote gentrifying abandoned areas or whatever, and we know the whole trope, and we're not talking about moving kinfolk out their hood situation, because that's bullshit, but looking at opportunities, what does that look like, and then how is it manifested? What we share is like, well, I'm going to go into that. We've shared it already for years, but for him to explain, like, to think about that, knowing what he knows about health and what he knows about human behavior and what people's things are, because he himself talks about how the difference between the nomadic lifestyle of the hunter-gatherers, how much calories are needed, how much salt, the sweating, and additionally, and how the sedentary life of today is different. That's well known by many people, not everybody. However, given that knowledge, and recognizing that just because that's how people are accustomed today doesn't mean it's healthy, and it doesn't mean it's the most ideal. What is the ideal? Knowing what we know today. And what is the spectrum? Like, what some people might be like, trying to fight that ichi. Some people might focus on just like being in those megalithic towers, whatever, and like living that lifestyle. Some people might live in the rural bush style. Some people might live in some intermediate kind of enclave kind of thing. So like given a number of different scenarios, given the prominent lifestyles of civilization today, and specific, tangible, what does that look like kind of situation. This was full very recently. I think that would be a very valuable conversation, actually, for all kinfolk involved. Examples like who to talk with in the Rastafari community. I think of Professor I, Prof I, Ross Flacco, Ross Stimulant, Brethren, Kanamawe Knife. Those are just some examples. There are lots of brethren in Rastafari. Some are further known, some are further low key. I would recommend like kinfolk who are genuinely congenial with kinfolk of other ethnicities, because we know there are a number of Rastafari brethren who have tremendous, awesome, and beautiful knowledge, but ain't willing to like have a genuine conversation with kinfolk, and that's fine. But we don't want to like fake the funk either, for anybody's whatever. So those are some examples of kinfolk who show that prospect, that propensity of having that kind of conversation on those topics with knowledge, who also have a track record of talking with kinfolk of different backgrounds in a respectful way, in a congenial, authentic way. So that's one consideration. Continuing, we're almost nearly back on to the main topic. Like I said, there's a lot of things to share, but ain't trying to share everything at the moment. There's a song, like a clapback song, that starts to come to mind, but we can't give it enough like attention to try to like do anything with it per se. But it's it might be like because it's in young people's minds, that it has this type of resonance, because it doesn't have substance, it doesn't have footing. It's weak art, but weak art can be a flash, and in that flash can like warrant or continually solicit attention. So why keep talking about it? Because it has yet to be resolved. So in the meanwhile, it continues to fester. So yeah, well, how much purpose is there in responding further to it at the moment? Even sharing this song or the clapback song, even when the clapback song has the intention of showing like we don't hate, we're responding, we stand on our own, and showing our own repertoire of knowledge and relationship and respect for our heritage, where we come from, that shared heritage. Like there ain't no proving anything to kinfolk who just hate. Don't like stoop to that level, because you walking by the road all clean and kinfolk are playing in the mud and start throwing mud. Like, you throwing mud back ain't gonna keep you clean. So you gotta make a decision. You're gonna stay clean or get to where you're going, or you're gonna stop and get muddy. Sometimes it's necessary, because sometimes like there are further mud pits in the front, and they see you just da 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 da, it gets further contentious. But then you see you hold your own there, and then they're like, all right, no, let it go. So that's how life is. It's nasty, but that's how life is sometimes. I'm seeing from here, and we can talk about, that's what I'm talking about in terms of fighting. Sometimes you can't just run away and hide from fights all the time. Sometimes you gotta stand up and be like, yo, shut the fuck up. What's up? Sometimes you take lumps. Sometimes we can't give lumps at this point. We're not sanctioned to give lumps. We've had to let that go in order to gain the knowledge that we have. We can do other things. I was gonna say, I got that story from today. Anyways, so I'll say that short story from today. Since we're on this joint, we got some battery, we got some storage. 10 minutes to midnight. So one thing about the song is that for Not Like Us, it's a matter like you're not the only ones. How about that? You ain't got the monopoly on black culture. Nobody got the monopoly on black culture. And cats want to start drawing lines. First of all, we don't draw lines. We're not gatekeeping. We're standing up. For those that want to draw lines, or claim drawing lines, or whatever else, look at the lines you're drawing and what you're keeping away from yourself. That's what we're saying, and that's what the purpose of the response join is. Not Like Us. What had happened was, and just showing all the examples of where black folk come from, which includes mixed folk. And if black folk want to be so pure, and additionally, well, all right, I've already said the rationale and the logic, so yeah, there it is. There's further elements to it, references and otherwise, but like I said, it's not enough to warrant investing that type of attention. Instead, I can just do these things. We can just do these things. Story from today. I'm doing prayer and meditation earlier today. And as I'm doing it, knock at the door. Just start getting into it. It's a quiet point at that moment in the prayer and meditation. There is the propensity of breaking out, answering the door, but we got to prioritize our prayer and meditation. We're working on strengthening our discipline, our routine. So we just continue on. Now, at the time, I've said before, like, who's been at that door when it knocks like that? There are few people who knock at this door, at either door, back or front. And so, given where things are, threats that are made, and additionally, to be honest, the DEFCON is like at maybe a yellow at the moment. So it's not even that high, but it doesn't have to be high for the knock at the door to come. And the conditions and the protocols and the directives are such that we don't have our protocols, and our directive is not like it is before when that knock on the doors come, of not fighting back, because ain't no fighting back one man against the Vatican's troops. When looking at the Three Musketeers, there's a story that Alexander Dumas shares about, like, the Three Musketeers, that culture of the swordsmen or whatever, and saying that if it's the constable's men, then you fight back and don't worry about it. It's the constable's men; they ain't got skills. If it's the king's men, you stand your ground and see what you can do. You might get it, you might not. If it's the Vatican's men, you'll run. We deal. That's what the Republic is like at this point. But we beyond. We're not better than or whatever, but we're not on those protocols. There ain't no running for nothing, because ultimately, like the Vatican's, they don't come knocking at the door. There's snipes, and there's chemicals, and there's other things, little pricks in public walks and otherwise. So whenever it gets that serious or other, so it's different conditions now. So anyways, but that being said, when it is the constable's men, meaning local police, municipality or otherwise, that's formidable in and of itself. Death is at the door. That's what those guns are. And so when that knock happens, that's what it feels like. Death is at the door. You don't know who's knocking. It could be the kinfolk claiming ownership of the building. It could be quote unquote maintenance doing a test run, testing the waters. Could be somebody else, or it could be the police with a court order to enforce abduction. So it's already happened in this exact location. So when I'm doing my prayer and meditation, getting ready to be calm and relaxed, boom, boom, knock on the door, it could be death, because we have the directive to stand up and fight back at this point. And that's not antagonistic, that's not threatening, that's not provoking, that's just a statement of fact. So when that knock on the door comes and I don't respond, because I'm like, no, whoever it is, I have to do meditation at this moment. This is the priority. I also think to my, and it continues on for a few times. So who is this? Who got sanctioned to be knocking on the door? There's a sign on the door at this very moment that says to building claimants and city municipality, death, painful death, not just the kinfolk, but to the loved ones of the kinfolk. It's facts on the door at this moment, and it's not cap, and it's not hype, it's not braggadocious. It's what the current circumstances are, because kinfolk, particularly a number of months ago, earlier in the year, out they mind, out of control, OC. And some kinfolk do not respond to anything except for the very primal experiences of pleasure and pain. And some kinfolk don't even care about that for themselves. And thus, the inclusion of loved ones. Serious, that's where things are. And the thing is, we're not threatening anybody, because we're communicating the consequences. We don't have to do anything. We're not obligated to do anything. We are prohibited from intending to kill anyone or hurt anyone. We are prohibited. But we know the consequences because there are powers beyond ourselves and there are consequences. We don't threaten that. We're not hinting that in terms of issuing orders or anything else. We're not sending out any secret signals for hits or anything else like that. We don't do that. But at the same time, we don't control everything. And we're not talking about people. I'm getting onto a whole nother side note, but we're not talking about earthly things. We're talking about spiritual things. And we're talking in earthly terms because many people are very drunk and very enslaved from the spirits, and additionally, and have difficulty thinking straight and seeing straight, and need that type of finality or that type of rhetoric, that type of sobriety to be able to recognize how serious circumstances are. That sign is on the door and somebody's knocking. Okay. Now, with that, I have to think about where's the toolie at? Because if somebody starts to barge into the door, ain't no diplomacy at that point. We have protocols involved already established for whenever anybody knock on the door, because we anticipate it happening sometime. Kinfolk have to do their flex and show their territory, and he can't run it all this time. We're gonna have to do some type of inspection, whatever. We're gonna have to show that we own this thing sometime. It's gonna happen sometime. Can't say God willing, but we anticipate it happening sometime. It's just a matter of a question of when. So we have very general preparations accordingly. We're not trying to divulge anything. There's nothing to divulge. It's very simple. Guide kinfolk to the window to talk if they want to talk. Who is it? First of all, If it's friendly, okay, holler. If it's not, go to the window. We'll talk through the window. That's it. If I want to talk through the window, there ain't nothing to talk about until you address what you've done and you provide assurances of not doing it again. Otherwise, there's nothing to talk about. Save the gaslight and the pimp talk for something else. This ain't the time. Don't care what you have to do, what you think you have to do, or otherwise. I'm just talking so strong at midnight to a screen, but that's the scenario, just for the information on the record for those who are watching. And that's what we prepare for. But when at that moment I'm sitting down, prayer, meditation, not answering the door for anything at that moment, because I'm in prayer and meditation. And when it keeps on going, I'm like, oh, okay. Because it's happened before. Been in prayer and meditation, kinfolk come through the door. And like I said, we had different protocols then. I know there's expectation of what they're going to do, what they're not going to do. And I continue with prayer and meditation whilst they come in with their shoes on, walking all up on the carpet and everything, doing what they do. That's not flying at this moment. So, knock on the door. Okay. Now anticipating, coming in. Now we got to think, okay, where's the toolie at? Is it charged up and everything? That's what's going on at that moment. And again, I don't know how many kinfolk have ever had that experience of facing death. Like serious, gun pulled in the face. It's the last day at that moment. Ain't no guarantee of getting out of that one. Every time the door knocks, and then I have to think, okay, I gotta listen. What do I hear outside? Are there any voices in terms of police or anybody else like being very quiet? Can I detect any voices? Can I detect any? And I'm sitting down here focusing on prayer and meditation, but at the same time, I have to be mindful of what's going on around me in the earthly. Do I hear any low-sounding heavy engines of an ambulance, big ambulance truck sitting on idle? Because I can't see out the window. I'm on the floor. Because that's usually how it's happening. It's very quiet. You don't hear anything until all of a sudden there's a knock on the door, and then there's like a half a dozen police at the door. And you hear them come in and anything else like that. And it's a very gentle knock at first. And there's the ambulance squad joint right outside that creeped up on low engine sound. Every time a heavy engine comes by. Is that it? So, and it's not even a fear at this point, because at some point living with that chronically, it just becomes the actuality. I mean, not the actuality. It becomes the acclamation. It's an acclamation to that, and it's death, it's torture, um, it's violence at the door. It's the heartbeat that starts to get fast, and additionally, and have to calm down and breathe calm, think calmly, and additionally, and how to proceed. Talk to soldiers. Every time the police officer puts on their uniform and puts on that strap, has an idea what it's like. Doesn't necessarily have an idea what it's like to have that done to them, but have an idea of what it's like to know, like going out into the streets and recognizing the dangers that are immediately in front of somebody. Most people don't have that experience ever, or I should say, many people don't have that experience ever. Most people don't have that experience on a regular basis. There are many that do. And the many that don't and presume to tell others about life, about what should be done, and additionally, who don't have that experience of facing death on a regular basis, shut the fuck up. All the genteel, polite, let's be peaceful and everything else like that, and don't know what it's like to face death. And the thing is, there are many kinfolk who have genteelness, and additionally who do know what it's like to interact with cults and low-key cannibals, pedophiles, and nasty motherfuckers. So don't sleep, but at the same time, don't tell others how to be and pretend and be part of the game like that. So, when am I getting off my chest? Blah, blah, blah. Anyways, oh yeah, that was the story from today. So, knock at the door. I'm still here, so presumably it ends decently, at least for the day, midnight. After a few knocks on the door. Ha 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 ha. This is funny. I continue on with my prayers and meditation for the next couple of hours. When I conclude and I proceed for the rest of the day, I actually go to the door, see if there's any like note or anything else like that. And there is a bag of bread. It's one of my neighbors who drops off some bread that I ate for brunch right after my prayers and meditation. I was going to share this story whilst eating the bread. That would have been a nicer kind of like effect or whatever. This is the bread that I'm eating. But that's the actuality. That's what we're living with. It can be one thing, it can be another. And the knowledge about that, knowledge of like, don't trip. It could be a loved one, it could be a family member, it could be a friend. It could be all those things and still a setup too. That's the nastiness of life at this moment at all. So, anyway, all happy stories aren't necessarily happy endings. All nasty stories aren't necessarily nasty endings either. So that was one thing from today. It would have been further theatrical to be eating the bread, but whilst sharing that story, however, because I was thinking about sharing the story, but then again, like, yeah, you know what? I ain't got to share anything. But now, like I said, still got yet to get to the point of what we're going for with this thing today. Seeing what else we got to share in the process before getting to the main feature, to our main show. Are we ready for it yet? Still looking for a wife. Haha, just throw that in there. And what's very easy about it is what I just mentioned. No citizenship, no ownership, Pontus Silas. That's what I've known for a long time. It's been very difficult to articulate that very plainly, succinctly, candidly, upfrontedly. And some of it is a matter of like, well, maybe I can be shown differently. Maybe a woman can prove to me something else about how to settle in a conventional way, da 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 da. And it's I mean, to be in this life, to be with me in relationship with me, this is what it is. And I think I know it for a long time, but I think enough people also around me who support me know it and see it now too. Maybe it's a matter of conditions in society becoming such that it's like, yeah, you know what, this is actually probably further, not even sane, but like healthy, not even healthy, but like practical, plausible, prudent, favorable, and additionally. So at the very least, it's like recognizing, okay, yeah, you know what, this is that's what it has to be, and it's not my doing, it's not my opinion, it's not my want, it's not even my religion. Um, it is this way, and I am in it. I recognize that there are others in it, um, and so that's what it is. So, in terms of finding a wife, always coming from a Western sense, there's this notion of individualism and selfishness, and then this trope of men having to get over their egos and learn how to compromise and everything else like that. But a lot of that, to be honest, at this point, I mean, obviously, there's a lot of bullshit men do historically through generations, and each man in this generation, because that's part of the necessity of ascending through the hierarchy of the republic. Yet at the same time, it's a very strong excessive condemnation about men and an excessive emasculation about men's authority, masculine authority. And so this whole thing about a compromise and getting over one's ego and stuff like that, a lot of that is predicated upon the perception, the presumption of men doing what he wants, of men wanting something, and pursuing his likes and his interests and his wants, and finding a woman to accommodate, to fulfill that, to provide that, to share in that, and otherwise. And that's not what we're talking about. I don't want nothing. I am here to fulfill a purpose and to find a woman to be in partnership with, a helpmate who shares this purpose. It's not about what I want. It's not what I like. It's not about being greedy in terms of the propensity or the possibility of having two or further wives. It's not about me getting my rocks off. It's not about me trying to like fulfill my ego or um, fantasies or fetishes or whatever else for any particular ethnic woman or anything. It's about fulfilling purpose. And in order for people to recognize that, people have to let go of their own presumptions and working um, coping mechanisms within society and compromises of letting go of their own purposes, their own life purpose, their own life value, and additionally, just to get along and to get some status, to be that slave that native children in the schoolhouses out in the nondescript locations refuse to be. We might have to get some more. So at this point, it seems to be like recognized like that's what it is. No citizenship, no ownership, Pontius Silas. Plain and simple. Um, and that's that. Going back to black cream again. Uh, so I threw that in there. Anything else? Any other shout outs? Somebody else I'm supposed to talk about. Oh, I said Gooby and Doobie. Um, and the brethren Daniel Dumbrill. Um, the sister Monica Ribeiro, Afropean. Yeah, we see the Afropean kinfolk on the continent and around, and so there's appreciation and respect for the movement, for the collective, and encouragement for further building in relationship, even amidst the conditions that I just communicate. Understanding the necessity of us having further stability in where we're at, to be able to share properly what we have to share. But I mean, we're talking about a civilizational paradigm and educational paradigm within it as well. Thinking about like international schools and the culture of international schools, for better and for worse. Many favorable things within it, many challenges as well, particularly cultural authenticity. Looking at the documentary film Hafu, the young Sistren, maybe 10, 11 years old, say it very plainly, the difference between the Japanese schools and the international schools. The sister says extremely plainly in English, she says, being at the international school, it's like hanging out and having fun. And being at the Japanese school is very joyful, meaningful, relationship, roots, authenticity, compared to the aesthetic of cosmopolitanism and expats. No hate, but just saying. Talk to the wisdom and the generosity of the 10, 11-year-old sister. In the own words, that's what it is. So consideration is coming from a mixed heritage experience and still getting off those shackles of assimilation and appropriation that are still affecting, and all this other things. Mixed heritage kinfolk, getting monies to be mixed in a certain way, with a certain agenda, with a certain topic course to discuss, to get off that and to invest genuinely within self and to share that because the world needs it, and work with groups, kinfolk, ministries of education in Europe, the European Union, the European Council, the Multicultural Commission within the European Union, to establish programs of education, not just publications of a few books, and that's not shade, just guidance. Not just a few publications here and there for individual gains or whatever else, but are we getting coffee now? But collective agreements that translate not to salaries or monies, but to land and residences. Water too. My eyes were feeling so decent just a minute ago. This water a wee bit warm, and that's okay. Everything's okay. Everything's okay. I was about to say Souls of Mischief, but that's actually the Far Side. In reference to Quentin. So, talking about working with ministries of foreign affairs, ministries of education, ministries of culture from specific nations that are increasingly woke to like authentic mixed heritage multiculturalism, understanding like where civilization is going and preparing for that, looking at the history, looking at the interaction, again I've said before, between King Gustav Adolf and His Majesty Haile Selassie of Ethiopia, His Majesty King Gustav Adolf of Sweden, and His Majesty Haile Selassie, King Haile Selassie of Ethiopia. The multiculturalism, the heritage, Dag Hammarskjöld, Grundtvig, and additional legends within the heritage that guide us into this next realm of world civilization and how to maintain the authenticity and the sanctity of indigeneity in Europe amidst and away from Judeo-Christianity, Greco-Romanism, Islam, and additionally, but at the same time, how to accommodate Judeo-Christianity, Greco-Romanization, Islam, and what was the other one? Whatever the other one is, I said. At the same time, how to do that? There are ways. But it's a matter of being authentic, being genuine about this. And mixed heritage people have a tremendous intuitive wealth of knowledge, innovation, pain, and suffering, and how to facilitate the reconciliation between cultures, between communities, between continents, the NTS and the NCE. So those nations that have that type of honesty and courage and wisdom for their own constituency, saying, okay, let's invest in an initiative that promotes mixed heritage, providing village Kutuhaun, a designated location for multiculturalism, and at the same time, initiatives for indigeneity, learning about Elderfoot the runes, the rune stones, the native history of Scandinavia. That's particularly in this case of Sweden. I have bias. That's my clan. So as a mixed heritage person, that's where the emphasis is. No shade on any of my other heritage, but in our methodology, we have a clan system. And in the clan system, we belong to the clan of, it's matrilineal, we belong to the clan of our Moors, and that's where my Moor comes from. So there's a further guidance to be further fluent in one's maternal heritage. At the same time, learning one's additional heritage. For me, that also is Twi, Igbo, Ethiopia, and further. Hebrew, Irish, Muskogee. So that's one of the reasons why my bias of references is there. But I've talked about Japan here. I've talked about China. So that's one example. It's Sweden's one. China is another one. Singapore, Mauritius, Uganda, Ethiopia, and other nations, Qatar, that are examples of opportunities of cooperation with ministries of education, ministries of culture. And like I said, instead of just focusing on publishing a book, publishing libraries that have the information of, I don't even know if we put a table of contents for this one. We must have done. We must have done. We must have done. We must have done. We did not. Not for all the names. That would have been nice. Oh, I didn't even share that one. But this one has, again, these are just Wikipedia articles. These are just Wikipedia articles. But this is 124 legends of the world. So this right here is a encyclopedia, a multi-volume set of encyclopedias. When done in a further organized and thorough way. So we're talking about establishing educational curriculum. We are doing educational curriculum. This is secular information. We already have. You can't tell by the binder itself, but we already have compilations and anthologies about the Holy Scriptures indigenously from the world, and a methodology of teaching it in a non-proselytizing way, in a very matter-of-fact, what we say natural spiritual logic. Sharing the information. This is the narrative. And communicating it in a way of matter-of-factness. Some people can say that just by stating it, one is communicating an affirmation of it. And some can say, depending upon how it's presented, it's such and such supposedly or allegedly, or this is what they believe, and be very dismissive and disassociative. Like people, conventional teachers all of a sudden getting gas all of a sudden. Teachers teaching native heritage are like, oh, the indigenous used to think this, and a passive language and everything. So not doing it that way, but just saying matter-of-factly, this is the historic, or what, we have methodologies of teaching this, and particularly for people to teach their own history and be the teachers of that to others. respectful, natural. So, and a library of this methodology, even exactly the way we present the text, as I said before, the language, the grammar, in addition, at least in the English language, and language learning being a major thing about it. Um, Geography is a huge thing about how we study. Now I'm just getting onto all this stuff about staying up late at this point. That's what I'm doing right now. Negating my sleep. I was cultivating a very nice sleeping pattern, going to sleep nearly amidst the smile concluding, or waking up with the smile beginning. Um, Still have yet to get to the main joint yet. Uh, an hour into this. Um, Back in the day, we go to the movie theater and we would want as many previews as we could get. We want to see as many of like the show as we can get before even seeing the film. Particularly if we're not that interested in seeing the film itself. It's just whatever is out there at that moment. We got $3.75 to spend. Oh, that's it. To see a big screen movie production. That would be the matinee. I could probably remember when the matinees were even less than that. That's probably when I had my bicycle. I do remember the $2 show, but that was later on, and that was the discount joint on Monday nights. That's a whole nother joint. The building does not exist at this moment. Um, Anything else? Oh, haha, chakras. I think I've already shared the one about the life cycle, the chakras. If anything else, that might be a topic for another conversation. It's very beautiful. It's very natural. Hallelujah. All things are praised the Most High. Um, if I start talking about that, it's easy going to be further hours. So I'm going to hold off on that at the moment. And again, like I said, we are devoting our education to full-time students. That's a beautiful way of saying it. Hallelujah. Thanks and praise to the Most High. Sang a song this week. Haha, how about that? Shout out to the brethren and sister I see this week. A number of brethren and sister have a number of beautiful reasonings on the streets as I walk these roads of creation this week. It's been a minute, to be honest, in such a way, particularly outside of the village here. But on that particular day, I'm walking, and yeah, I don't have nothing. I said before, the sign is in requirement of mending. Oh, that's not it. We carry it with us. But as you can see, it requires some attention. We don't have no duct tape at this point. So, it is what it is. I ain't got no duct tape. 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 I'm so sad with duct tape. So sad with duct tape. Now, the title of that track is not the most appropriate. It's not the most child friendly. I can tell you the singer, his name is David Lee Roth. After the Days of Van Halen. How about that? What? Does he know about those things? Popular culture, brethren. Looking like ZZ Top. Almost. With a suntan. Flossy. How he know that and talk like that and be that old? I think only people this age would actually know who that is. So that answers that question. Did I not say before also, popular culture? It don't take much to have a TV. And then, didn't I mention being mixed? Anyways, DB. Anything else? Ooh. Before my black card gets called into question again. I've already relinquished it. Don't have a black card at this point. It's unnecessary too. Ooh, I'm not trying to hurt or reflex. That's where things are at this moment. The African card is it's not it's like a DNA thing. I can't. No, ain't nobody getting rid of that. Ethiopia, Igbo, Twi, Akan, for days, to the days. Svensk, Dansk, Israel, India, Ireland, Celt, for days, to the days. So, continuing on, right, getting into the topic of cultural prostitution and cultural appropriation, where my credentials are put to the test. Bring it. Adesm say, come tis me no. So for those who want to, before I even say what I got to say, want to challenge on who does he think he is to be talking about this and even say such things and call into question any such things. What we invite you to do. I ain't nobody. That's not. I don't even have to say I ain't nobody. Fine. Let it speak for itself. Let whatever I say speak for itself. I ain't nobody. Listen to the words. Have courage. And be honest. Here we go. Cultural prostitution and cultural appropriation. Where this is a next level joint. This is next level. This is mind. I'm trying to not be so profane in this joint. This is mind messedness. It's not even foolery. It's mind nastiness. This is that type of next level of where things are. And here's what I'm talking about. We got to give it some pretext. I've gone through the past few months talking about kinfolk, playing some jazz, a track that is near and dear to the heart right here. And the kinfolk who are playing this particular, doing this rendering of the track, doing a performance, a recorded live performance, that ain't it. And it's not just a matter of like just being out of key. They're skillful musicians, but what they're playing ain't it. And it's not just a matter of not being it and let them be as they are. It ain't it, and it's covering. It's part of the methodology of prostituting and appropriating culture. And that's what requires it being called out without hate. Beauty and peace and blessings to all the kinfolk who do that. Beauty and kinfolk. That's getting late now. Peace and blessings of the Most High with all the kinfolk who do that performance. I'm not going to give names and I'm not going to reference it specifically, but just this is part of where it's coming from, because this is part of the story of what had happened was. So I've been doing that joint for a number of months. I've already explained the basic situation on that. And in doing that, I've shared examples of what it is, of different people of all different cultures. And I'm talking about a jazz. It's Mobile Blues, and it's a jazz standard, I guess at this point, kind of sort of coming from my era. One of the tracks from a soundtrack from a film that basically puts me onto jazz, and it's extremely meaningful because the song itself is a song. It's jazz, so there's no lyrics. You have to feel it to know it, and not just feel it, but to like understand and share in the experience, because that's what jazz is. It's understanding where the music comes from to understand what's being communicated. You can feel it and see for yourself, okay, that's a happy song, as the daughter of Branford Marsalis says in his interview a number of years ago or recently. You can hear it and feel it and say, okay, that's a happy song, okay, that's a sad song, and additionally. But as an adult and with the depths, it's a matter of understanding where the sound comes from, the sufferation of a people's and of the specific persons that share that song when it has no lyrics. You don't have to know the language, but know something about the history and the experience, and then know it some kind of proximate same experience within oneself to be able to know what that is. So with Mo Better Blues, that particular track, the title track for the sound and the soundtrack in the film, it's a song. I mean, people can say it's a song about all different types of stuff, but what I'm sharing is that it is a song between a father and son, and a father and son who are experiencing separation that they cannot talk about because they don't have the language to talk about it, and it's still going on. And the father explaining to the son how to be in life without him having the words to say it. That's what that is. And if you see the film, you see that's in the film. You see how all the storyline about the sex and the relationships and the music and everything else like that, part of just the simplicity of it, it's further evident in one of Spike Lee's other film, which is He Got Game. It's and much of Spike Lee's work is a testimony of his relationship with his father, and the relationship of the black man, the black father with the black son in this culture. That's what Mo Better Blues is communicating. So that's one of the reasons why it's so meaningful to me, because that's what I listen to when I am a youngster, a boy, 15 years old, 16 years old, when the film first comes out. As I'm getting ready to go into life, and my dad, my father, being a jazz head. That's him, but not sharing it with me because it's too rich and too much of a treasure for me to mess up. And so he teaches me so much in life, but one of those things is actually holding back and letting me find out for myself. And when I show an interest and a respect, it's not just gonna be the basketball. I'm just play around and then lose it, because like I said, it's too important to because when a child is growing up, you let them have the things that they can mess up. But when it's something like, no, you can't mess this one up, we're gonna have to hold this one up till you're ready for it. That's what jazz is with me and my father. And I Mo Better Blues is the track that I learned jazz with. So again, like this is what the meaning for myself. Now, that's part of what sets up this story, because we still have yet to get into it of what I'm sharing at this moment. But it's actually we're taking steps into it, small steps and larger steps. All right. Now, what happened was, I get suggestions. The algorithm knows that, he likes Mo Better Blues. For the past couple of years, I look for live performances of Mo Better Blues. Mo Better Blues. Blah, blah, blah. And a few months ago, probably earlier this year, I should say. Now this has been a minute. I get a recommendation for viewing this live performance of Mo Better Blues by the Tokyo Jazz Fusion Orchestra. Recent performance of it maybe a year ago. Live on stage. And I listened to it. I'm like, ugh, that was nasty. Who that is? To be honest, my brother's name still escapes me. I've learned, I've shared it, I've seen it. I refer to him as Frizzy Gillespie. It's an honorific. and you know. So, but nasty, foot in it. Um, and so I put that one on the list, like with the Czech Republic and other kinfolk who've done it proper. And doing it proper don't even mean doing it. It definitely doesn't mean doing it the same way, because that's not what jazz is. It's not robotic. So that's domo arigato. Anyways, that's an 80s European pop reference. So, anyways, that's what I see. I see the performance, and I'm like, what was this? Like, what's going on with that? So I listened to some other recordings from that same performance on stage that evening, presumably evening, and maybe it was 2 years ago. Either way, it was recent. Um, and I listened to another track, and when I heard that second track, I hadn't heard that. I had not heard. I say track. I should say song, because the track is a recording. It was a performance. So I heard that second song. I heard a second song, and I'd never heard that second song before. First time I heard it is another way of saying it. And yo, powerful, powerful song. And I could already tell. And I think actually when they gave the credit, that's part of the credit. That's part of the credit. That's part of the protocols. Giving credit to the source where you get things from, providing respect due. So they give the credit, and I could tell. Whoa, okay. But even I think it was probably before the song was performed as a subtitle of as it was getting ready, that I could tell whoo by the songwriter, the composer. Like, okay, that's legit. And the thing is, the composer is Terence Blanchard, jazz musician, who actually performs Mo Better Blues, is featured with the Branford Marsalis Quartet on the soundtrack that is composed significantly by Bill Lee, which is Spike Lee's father, Spike Lee's far. So that's the history. It's a shared history. So when I see Terence Blanchard name, I'm like, oh, here we go. And I had not heard this track before. I don't listen to a lot of things at this point that are around, even for the past 20 years. This is composed 20 years ago, and it's called. It tells right at this by the title. I think it's just simply called Levees. That's it. I know what this is going to be. So let's hear it. And when I hear it, yo, tears. I think about it. I was just about to watch it, which is what precipitates me doing this. I was watching it because it's in the repertoire now. It's in the what they call it, the cycle or whatever. But anyways, it's in the library. So I go to look at it, and as I look at it, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have to share this joint at this point. And this is not actually what I'm sharing. What I'm sharing is about to get nasty, and it's painful. So I'm just giving the heads up. So when I watch that song, listen to that song for the first time, that performance, like I said, that's nasty. That was beautiful, powerful. Feel it to tears, and it's not just a matter of crying. Oh, that's no. It's like you feel the vibration, the healing, the catharsis, the depths. Like, yo, all right, that was hitting. So now, I'm gonna have to look Brethren Terence Blanchard up again. And I mean, here's the thing: like a week after, or like immediately amidst listening to this, then I get a notice. Oh, by the way, Terence Blanchard is going to be performing at the local jazz festival here in the Cuyahoga area, like in 2 weeks. At that time of watching that. Anyways, that's just an aside situation. So then I look at, because again, that's the first time I hear that. Now I got to pay my respects, okay? I know who Terence Blanchard is. Mo Better Blues from, that's 30 years ago now. Wow. Whoa. I started listening to jazz in the early 90s, where in 30 years before that was the literal days of Miles Davis and John Coltrane, which is my father's era. And to me, that was just like ancient. That's like old school. And now, 30 years ago, is actually my day. Oh, hallelujah, give thanks and praise for life. for life. Continuing on. So I gotta go check out what's going on with this thing right here. And I find out, like, back some nearly 20 years ago after Katrina, Terrence Blanchard writes an album in honor of what happens. I don't know everything about it. There might have been something involved in terms of proceeds going to this and the other. That's being presumptuous. But again, the spirit of it looks like it was in that kind of ilk. And I don't want to put too much onus or obligations or whatever else. But it was like is an honor in honor of the people who suffered from that experience 20 years ago. The levees being broken. So I listen to the tracks in addition, and I download, because again, I have to catch the Wi-Fi. I have to download. I can't watch everything in screen or whatever else. So I just download the audio recordings, and I listen to the entire. I think I'll listen to the entire album. And so I'm like, oh, okay, nice music. It's Terrence Blanchard. It's going to be quality. And then, like, particularly certain tracks, again, just listening briefly, hit. And particularly that one, Levees. And I mean, I hear the performance from the Tokyo Jazz Fusion Orchestra, but I got to listen to the original recording of the brethren who composed it, particularly coming from the same roots and heritage and otherwise. So I listened to it, and okay, it's there. That's it. So that's it. Now, that being said, then I look for a video recording of a live performance with it, and I find one, and this is a special performance. I don't know how late after the actual occurrence of Katrina that the performance is done. It might have been a year after, or otherwise it might have been 10 years later, or whatever else. And now we're getting into the nasty, and this is with all due respect. I think we've already shared and shown this, but at the same time we got to call things out too and hold kinfolk accountable. And this is not a huge thing, but this is an important thing to recognize and address. And we invite reasoning. If I'm tripping, holla with respect and with some knowledge and credibility, to be honest. Because this is, like I said, this is next level. So we're going to have some conversations and some vetting, to be honest, to discern the qualification of the holler back. But anybody is welcome to do so with that proper respect and due diligence. That being said, here we go into the challenge. The recording that we saw, the first one that's presented from the immediate search, is him doing. It was a production. It was him on stage with an orchestra, featured trumpeter, doing his music. So it's all about it's him. It's centered around him. At least that particular recording. He's the featured artist. And it's like I said, it's a production. So it's not just the music, but at that performance, there is a video slideshow of Katrina, the people suffering. So you can hear the music. And the music is enough. You can just listen to the music and feel that. You don't need the slideshow. You don't need the visuals. That's part of what music is. The visuals actually limit it. And particularly in this instance, the visuals actually compound the nasty. And this is not the bad meaning bad, but this is not the bad meaning good. This is the bad business nasty of the situation. And this is what I'm saying. This is what we're talking about. Now, again, just to be clear, what Levees is about is suffering. It's about death. It's about abandonment. It's about lies and sufferation and downpression. It's about a government not giving a fuck about people and pretending that it does. And not only that, preventing other people from helping one's own who are dying. And instead of helping the people who are dying, and instead of allowing others to help the people who are dying, saying, no, we got it. Don't worry about it. We got our own. And still letting them die. That's what we're talking about. Nasty fucking bullshit. That's what we're talking about with Katrina. It ain't no surprise. It ain't nothing new. And it ain't nothing nice. To this day, shut the fuck up, United States, about pretending to care and anything else. whether you're black, white, or otherwise. Don't give a fuck. Shut the fuck up. You don't. That's an example of it. And kinfolk still go back to it. Anyways, that's not what we're talking about here. I hear the streets getting a little bit loud as I get loud. Manifestation. This is what we're talking about here, because the visuals aren't necessary, but it was a production. So that's becomes the reason why we say that. And one, that's not even the point here. That's not the point. I'm going to say it since I've already gone on to this thing. The visuals, you don't need it, and it becomes further actually disrespectful because it becomes a theater. It becomes, look how sad this is. Oh, this is terrible. Oh, it's not just the music, but now we see it too. Oh, it's so poignant. And it becomes an opera. And the thing is, the people who are responsible for the suffering and the dying in those scenes are the people who are sitting in the audience. Taxpayers and citizens, patrons of the arts, who speak such glowing words of the tragedy and the sadness and the depths and the meaning of the music to make one feel better. Shut the fuck up bullshit. That's what's painful. Now, to be honest, what's interesting is that might not be as obvious, and I might not be saying that if it wasn't the visuals, and particularly if it wasn't for what I'm about to say. For if it wasn't about the fact of what I'm about to address. And that's on me at this point, because would I be calling bullshit on the patrons of the arts, and additionally, had it not been so obvious. So anyways, I'll get to the point what I'm saying. And again, it's not that big. What I'm about to say, it's not that big of a thing, particularly for what I'm addressing. So we have to be very mindful of calling out this criticism, but it's very important to do so. And there's so much susceptibility of saying, that's it, Peter? What? That's what you're talking about? That's what you're finding fault in? This whole thing about everything else you've said, and that's what you're saying? Yes. And here it is. Amidst all the conditions that were there, regardless of anything else, those are the conditions, and so that's how much hypocrisy and duplicity and atrocity is involved just in the matter of fact type of stuff. Even just the concert itself, a charitable concert or whatever it is, for that concert to then have the visuals, that's insult to injury. It's putting involuntary people who didn't sign up to put their image or whatever else on stage. And this is not the privileged person trying to advocate for somebody else. This is just sharing plain facts. It becomes a theater, and it's disrespectful to the people who are in that plight, who are dying in flooding waters, and additionally, and being shown because it provides added emphasis for the theater. It's disrespectful. Some people can see that but can't speak to it, don't have the leverage amidst the organizers to say, oh no, we think this would be fantastic. I think this would motivate people to get involved and make donations, and that can go to a positive cause. It's very difficult to argue against people who are very insistent and very entrenched in their own egos and empowerments or delusions or whatever. So I mean, that's that actual. But here's what we're getting to. The brethren himself, brethren, holy brethren, talented brethren, Terence Blanchard himself, in that performance, is wearing electric blue eyeglasses. Whilst he is performing that awesome track, that awesome recording, that awesome song, electric blue Elton John-like glasses. It's not the most flamboyant or whatever else, but that's not the look at that moment in sharing that experience, particularly in showing the people dying in the flooding waters. and being fashionable, representing one's culture, uniqueness, or whatever, styling. Wardrobe is conservative. I think it's a suit, dark suit or whatever else, but it just to show the flavor, bright electric blue glasses. No, this is a funeral. It's a funeral service. Whatever the purposes of that actual gathering, it effectively is a funeral service. That's not the time to be showing one's uniqueness, one's artistic stylings and flair, or otherwise. If that was like the last minute thing, glasses broke beforehand, that was the only pair that was available, and I can't, but still, that's not it. And that's so disrespectful to the people who are dying in those videos, in the levees, and additionally. And it's so difficult to call out because that's the man who wrote the song. How can you call him out? That's how entrenched the cultural prostitution is, and the cultural appropriation is in this society, and in this world, but particularly in this society. When we talk about crossovers, that's not even a word now, because it's so much the norm. Back in the 80s and 90s in hip hop, that's what people call crossovers. What does that mean? It means that either one was either authentic and like communicated the experience of the street in hip hop, and might got us a little bit of notoriety, but still didn't cross over to get mass sales or whatever else, or somebody did cross over and became mass sales and let go of the street experience and the authenticity in order to give that popular message. But it becomes so normalized that hip hop doesn't even talk about it. People started talking about being studio gangsters, but after like that got like brushed off, then it was just like, we don't care. We don't give a fuck anyways. Who cares? And that translates to other things as well. So now it just becomes a product, like crack cocaine. It gets cut and it gets cut and it gets cut into an aesthetic. And some names have further authenticity, like reputation of who got the nice stuff on the streets. And that's the prostitution of culture. And it permeates all the way down to the cultural shops in the neighborhoods that sell the culture out to make money to people who are not within the culture immediately and heritatively. It's sold out to people who have money. And it's very difficult to avoid. And it's not meant as hate to the kinfolk, because we know kinfolk got to deal with practicalities. But we're talking about even within reggae music, particularly within reggae music, kinfolk, the concert organizers, or whatever else, the vast monies that go to pay for the lifestyle, and the livelihood of reggae artists is not coming from Rastafari. It's not coming from even black people. It's coming from white people, quote unquote, European kinfolk, who want to party, who like the weed culture, and like the vibration of Rastafari, and want to have a vacation, and want to have away from the judgmentalism of mainstream culture for the moment, and so are willing to spend $100, $200, $500, $1,000, go on vacation. The further authentic the experience, the further people are willing to pay. And that's prostitution of culture. And it becomes normalized to the point where it's difficult to even like say anything about appropriation of culture, because the people who have the credibility, the artists, and additionally have already established a strong track record of already selling out the culture, that it's difficult to call out somebody else for appropriating, whether it's Drake or anybody else. Instead of, well, all right. So anyways, that's the thing about, and again, this is coming from mad respect and props for what Terrence Blanchard does, who Terrence Blanchard is. Particularly, he plays the trumpet. on the original recording of Mo Better Blues that I just mentioned before. We are brethren for life. That's it. Whatever we like or don't like about each other, or what we do, or whatever else, it's the bond. It's already done. That's what it is. But at the same time, we gotta hold ourselves accountable for our own sake, for our collective sake. So that's what this is. And that's next level, because like I said, how are you gonna call out the man who wrote the song? How you gonna call that's not it on him? He wrote the motherfucking song. It made you cry, Mr. Righteous Man. That's what we're talking about. That's how nasty it is. And it's how difficult to call out. So I could give other names of other examples or whatever else, but that's not the point here. We're not throwing Brethren Terence Blanchard out under the bus. We're just calling out this one thing that we saw that causes considerable trouble, considerable pain. It indicates the fact that it was done shows like a certain lack of conscientiousness. We don't know how often it goes on again, but just like that disregard, it's like, wait, what was the whole thing about anyways? If this is how kinfolk are seen as a theater, it's how the suffering is seen as a theater, then we have to call into question, wait, was this whole thing just about like finding an opportunity to write some poignant music and set it to a tragedy? Now that's a nasty thing to think about, to reduce it to that kind of like motivation, but at the same time, that's what the thoughts that are conjured up, the suspect considerations that are conjured up, and the necessary considerations that are conjured up, because we gotta be on guard, we gotta be on point. So, and it's not, we're not accusing not even accusing any of that, but just talking about the mere fact of wearing electric blue glasses at a funeral. That's it, plain and simple. And then all the other implications and repercussions or whatever else, that's the next conversation. But just to recognize, for those that can recognize that, and to encourage kinfolk to like be further true, to raise the standard of compromise in working with the machinery and making the price higher, so that there's further accountability and acquiescence to authenticity. That's what we talking about. Who you with? So, what was that right there? Peace and blessings to Sean Carter. Now, one other thing on this topic. And very easy, I can say. Frizzy Gillespie in Tokyo, in his performance with the Brethren, all Japanese, probably hardly speak English, probably many. Maybe, well, straight up Japanese, unapologetic, straight up Japanese. At the same time, when performing that song, look at the faces of the kinfolk on it. Some have masks on, when talking about my previous critique about the Brethren with the Mo Better Blues performance that I talked about before. Some of the kinfolk have masks on. Feel it. It's a different vibration. It's straight up orchestra. You can feel like that's what it is. Not trying to hide or be something else. Not trying to be all boppity and everything play the role. Straight up Japanese playing European orchestration. But at the same time, feeling it. True. How that is. You don't know this suffering, or you don't think so? Did you not see, was it right before Katrina, the tsunami, the wave that comes in and annihilates entire city in Japan? You don't think Japan knows about flood and death? What that is? To drown, massive. What it's like to look onto the shores that few venture to travel in life since creation. The vastness of the Pacific Ocean, where China and Korea even don't go, too tough. Being on the island, and then all of a sudden seeing a wave arriving, kinfolk screaming and running for their lives, and it don't matter, it's too late. The wave is here. You don't think Japan knows that suffocation of drowning? And if that's not enough for you, you can go a little bit further and look at the shadows of Hiroshima and Nagasaki and ask if Japanese brethren and sistren know what suffocation is, and at whose hand they done felt that suffocation. With black folk coming back looking proud with their medals and their military uniforms, native kinfolk coming back, returning to the res, Dene Nation, and additionally, code speakers, walking years later, generations later, proud with their honor guard at the shadows that have been caused. You don't think other kinfolk know what that suffocation is? And at whose hand they done had that sufforation? Wake up. So, invitation to look at the presentation from Tokyo of that same song and see the respect that the Japanese brethren share and sisters share when playing that particular track. Look at the faces. Look at the solemnness, the soberness. I don't see any electric blue styling glasses on when performing that song. That's part of the next level of truth. I'm a piece of shit. I walk with God. I'm no better, worse than anybody else. No better and no worse. Truth is truth. We do the best we can. We not perfect. We are perfectly imperfect, just like everybody else is. We are called to. And that's what we share at this moment. That's the joint. Shadows dancing without earthly bodies. Shadows sitting and meditating without earthly bodies. Shadows teaching and learning quietly without earthly bodies. Life is scary and life is beautiful. All thanks and praise to the Most High Elohim. Blessed love and peace in Rastafari.